Hello, Dawn here from Cyprus again, and as I'm in the middle of gardening, I thought perhaps you might like to see how all the seeds, Hugel Beds and Ruth Stouts from my last couple of videos are doing. So let's take a look. So this Hugel Bed has got broccoli in, and I've actually since the last video put onions in between them all, just to make sure I don't get any butterflies, and also I always put eggshells around the bottom as I get them, so that stops snails, slugs, and if you did happen to get any caterpillars, it stops the transfer from plant to plant. As you may also see in this bed, I use a lot of my paper mulch, which you can see in another video. We recycle everything we can here on our off-grid organic eco olive farm. We write twice on paper or any old envelopes, and then I make it into mulch. So as you can see, this broccoli is doing pretty well. And as always, I apologise for our strong sun. It's very hard to film in Cyprus at certain times of the day. This Hugel bed is for onions only, and as you can see I leave a lot to go to seed, so they will resow naturally. That's the whole point of Hugel beds, it becomes natural. Onions are a good plant for companion planting, meaning planting them between certain plants that attract butterflies will counteract a lot of butterflies and therefore stop caterpillars. In this Ruth Stout bed I have 4 very strong tomato plants growing, and the tallest one being almost as tall as me now. Yes, you can top them. I'm not very fond of doing that because I like to keep the tomatoes growing. Normally topping them creates stronger tomatoes at the lower levels, but I find we have that anyway, so a few of them I do leave to grow, which means a longer season of tomatoes. Again, if any fall off the bottom, then they will grow naturally again next year. If you're not sure what Ruth Stout or Hugelkultur beds are, I do have videos on both of them, plus how to actually make particularly the Hugel beds, but also how I make my Ruth Stout beds. We have many different types of tomatoes. We have the cherry tomatoes growing here, and we also have, my favourite is the plum tomatoes, what I call teardrop or drop tomatoes. They get long and thin, and these get very big. We've got the smaller ones and the huge ones. So I just mix my beds up with the different types of tomatoes. This Ruth Stout area has peppers, and again this is the strongest one that I will leave to reseed. I will use the peppers of course, and then just drop the peppers back in this area. And in this Hugel bed I have tomatoes. These came up later, so they're not as strong as my really tall ones, which the last bed was the strongest tomatoes I have in my whole garden, including the cat bags. And I'll show you those in a minute. I find my tomatoes grow best in cat bags. That one needs tying up again. It's a good reason to film sometimes, to actually take a good look round what needs doing. Little odd jobs. And at the moment, the final area growing in my Hugel bed area and Ruth Stout main beds is another bed of broccoli. Again, I made sure there were onions growing in between all of these. We're quite lucky really, because even though it's a very hot summer, we did have a couple of nights of condensation. So in the mornings these Hugel beds were very damp, which really boosted the growing rate in this bed. So here we have the area of the tomatoes that are growing the best in my cat bags. I'll go down the steps so you can see. There's one of my orange trees that I planted to a tire. So after coming down the steps, as I've said before, I don't know whether things grow extremely well in these cat bags because they have some protein left in the traces of food in the cat bags. But whatever I grow in these cat bags grows really well. I use a hole puncher to make some holes in the bottom, hence why they're in tubs, to catch any excess water, and roll the tops down if you use these sorts of bags, because if you use a hose or a watering can with a strong flow, you will find the bags actually bend over and the water goes everywhere. So I always roll the tops down a little bit, which makes them firmer at the top. See how tall these are. My husband does actually come along sometimes and pull off the top to stop them growing too high, which I don't do. So you can see the ones he's touched. And then here is an old back of a toilet cistern, which is great for growing in. We have a couple of these in our garden. So again, we have a mixture of different sorts of tomatoes growing here. I don't know the names of all the varieties other than the cherry tomatoes, the small round ones, and the plum tomatoes, but again there's several types of these. There's really huge ones which we have and smaller ones. So these are plums, the ones that look like teardrops hanging. And as you can see, some are starting to redden off. These were planted first, the ones in the cistern. That's why they've reddened off first. So I can't make a comparison of those other than they haven't grown as tall. And then here in my tyres, I've got my amazingly tall peppers. This seems to be the best growing for those. So really big peppers growing here. In fact, you can see one already coming. There's a pepper coming here. And lovely Mexican chili peppers by the side. So until next time, Meraki.